This is a review of the CSB full-size Quentel by Schuyler Bibles. I bought this when it first came out. Oh, this is the Credo edition, by the way. I bought this when it first came out. I eventually sold it to a friend, and I have borrowed it back for the purpose of this review. You'll see the creeds in the back. But for now, you'll see it is the original format of the Quentel. This is not the updated version where the footnotes have been removed, but the content is at the bottom. This is simply the older version, and I also have beside it the Christian Standard Bible Full Yap edition in the personal size Quentel. This Bible came out in 2020. There's the Quentel series right there. Published by Schuyler. It is printed in the Netherlands. Came out in 2020. Paper is from France. Typesetting by 2K Denmark. It's a 2020 text edition, but I've noticed, as I'm a preacher from the CSB, that there are a number of places where there's small, very small minor variations. There was a comma and a couple other punctuation things, or maybe it was a semicolon that I came across in Mark. And then I recently heard of another one on the forum. I think there's a third one that I saw somewhere recently too, but I haven't come across anything recently, and they're not of significant changes. It does have the red accents, red line there. Well, I should say it's a maroon. It matches this color here pretty well. This font is actually a bolder font than the ESV and NASB. They make some minor variations, and this one is bolder, which in this case I actually don't like. I like the fact that there are bold options, and I'm glad that this exists, but the paper is thin enough and the opacity is not good enough that you often see quite a bit of ghosting back behind. So, for instance, here's an old copy of India paper from the NIV, and this isn't even the nicer edition, but I think that even though it's yellowed a little bit, the ghosting is less here than the CSB. And then I have also a copy of the original ESV. Came out in 2001, and this one's printed in 2001 in the US of A. There it is. And this has a better opacity as well, in my opinion. So I'm not super thrilled with that. I've also owned a NIV 36 GSM in the Quentel. It's, a fourth of an inch, half an inch thicker. I actually prefer that. This does feel thinner in its paper. The more you use it, of course, the more it'll turn. But for instance, if I'm preaching up there and I move my hands, sometimes my hands will even turn a page because it's thin enough paper. So it's not just an opacity issue, it's a gripping issue. It's a feel issue. It feels cheap, but I know a lot of people complain about that. Ironically, I actually like the 28 GSM in the personal size Quentel, and I inquired on this in some forums online, and I discovered that the reason for that is the page is smaller, and so it's a little bit stiffer because of that. So the pages themselves are not any different in their quality, but I've not had any problems with the pages floating by and things like that in my PSQ. But back to this one here. This is one of the rare birds that they came out with, and maybe they'll have them again at some point, that includes of course it has a concordance. I really wish it would include concordance in the PSQ, but alas. It has the following creeds and catechisms and confessions. You'll notice that the Heidelberg is missing, so that's the big difference between the ESV creeds and confessions and this one. It does have the London Baptist Confession, and that's my church's London Confession of Faith. And it's a little bit different typesets. I don't mind that at all. It doesn't really bother me one way or the other. But what does annoy me about the ESV edition is that it uses some of the old spelling and random capitalization. You'll see here it has the capitalization of the pronouns for deity, but in the other edition, arguably more accurate because it has the same capitalization of random words, which I don't have a copy nearby to be able to compare them. But I like this setting better. I also like the single column, but that's not a huge deal to me. And here's the different texts where it was taken from, which is very similar, although I don't think identical to the ESV Creeds and Confessions. It has maps. They're good maps. I like them. I use them all the time. What CSBs do have that other Bibles don't is a map, so to speak, a chart of the kings of Judah and Israel. And I think this is super helpful. The North and the South kings. I reference this all the time in our Wednesday night Bible study because we are going through the Old Testament book by book right now. And there's also key an index to the maps. Overall, I like the Quentel, but I did not like it enough to keep it. I do like the smaller yap on the bigger Bibles. I prefer full yap or semi-full on the smaller Bibles. I think it fits better in the hand and it's easier to grab. But especially when you open this thing up, it is already so big. And so when you open it up and you have this extra inch of leather on each side, I don't prefer that personally. The wingspan on this is 12, almost 15 inches across, including the leather, whereas the personal size Quentel all the way across is about 12 inches on the dot, actually. I love Schuyler. I'm glad they do it. I really wish they would switch to 36 GSM. By the way, here's a comparison of the new typesetting from Schuyler, and you'll notice that there are no footnotes in the text itself. I like that look a lot, but I still wish they would switch to thicker paper. It's not just about opacity, it is also about the ability to grab the page, and sometimes you're just like, come on, come on, come on, come on. And if you have that thicker page to it, it helps to grab it. Sometimes you'll grab two and not know it, and you'll be confused as to why you've gone from Ecclesiastes 9 to Song of Solomon or whatever. One thing I also don't like about the CSB Quentel compared to other CSB editions is that it doesn't include an indication where the verse is in the footnote. So for instance, if you look down the footnote and you're like, A, okay, where is A? You got to manually look up. The other CSB editions that are by Holman, they will have a scripture reference in front of it. 46:18, 46:20, and so forth. And the CSB Quentel does not have that, and that's a little annoying. And also annoying, and this is not a problem with Schuyler, this is a Holman edition issue, but when they have lots of footnotes, they end up double, not digiting, but double lettering it. So AC, AD, and the footnotes are in all caps letters. So here you'll have E, capitals, and then AA. It's like you have so many footnotes that you have to go back to, you have to double the letters up. And that just clutters the reading experience for me. I much prefer the NIV's approach where they just restart the letters at the end and you can figure it out based on the verse numbers. So that's my review of the CSB Quentel Credo edition. Unfortunately, you cannot buy this currently, but you never know when Schuyler might do a reprinting, and I think there is one due coming up, and they might have a Credo edition. Thanks for watching.